The new film by Oz Perkins Longlegs has just been released in theatres, and it's quite the insane new horror installment. It's a blend of many different tones of the genre, and it all comes together to deliver a film that for some may be very satisfying, while for others might be quite disappointing. For the most part though, I really enjoyed his new film, and I thought it was a breath of fresh air to watch a horror movie that functioned on pure tension throughout its runtime. I was a bit mixed on the movie's later reveals, but when it comes to the tone and structure of the piece, I thought it was a very satisfying effort. So in this explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown of Longlegs, discussing full plot details, the ending, and much more. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the film yet, then I would recommend checking it out before watching my analysis. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more on upcoming releases like Longlegs, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for Oz Perkins Longlegs. So Oz Perkins' latest film Longlegs has arrived with much anticipation, promising to stir up some strong opinions among horror fans. Drawing from his previous works, The Black Coat's Daughter and Gretel and Hansel, Longlegs weaves together the satanical with intense cinematic suspense. This dark and atmospheric movie follows FBI agent Lee Harker, portrayed by Maika Monroe, as she delves into a chilling satanic murder spree linked to a mysterious serial killer named Longlegs, portrayed by Nicolas. The beginning of the movie showcases a unique style that sets it apart from the rest of the film. Filmed in a 4:3 aspect ratio, a vintage clip transports us back to the past where a young girl is seen playing in the snow outside of her house. She is approached by an unidentified man who is overjoyed to see the girl, speaking in a mysterious yet enthusiastic manner about her upcoming birthday and how he's made a special effort to be there. Throughout the interaction, the man known as Longlegs remains mostly hidden, with only part of his head visible, and just as he finally kneels down into view, we cut to the opening credits where we get glimpses of crime scenes and murder victims. While this opening was mysterious to begin with, the film later reveals that the young girl was actually the detective Lee when she was a younger girl, and the peculiar intruder was Longlegs. It's unclear whether Lee was targeted because of her psychic ability, but from what we knew at that time, her mother Ruth had managed to persuade the man to leave her alone. There was more to this moment, however, and later on in the film, it's revealed that Ruth had a part to play in Longlegs' scheme, which I will come back to as we approach the ending. Also, Lee eventually forgot about the incident, but when she later returns to her childhood home, she remembers what happened that day, and it connects to her investigation of the present-day killings. So 2 decades later, Lee Harker, a young FBI agent, is assigned to canvass a suburban area with a new partner to gather intel on a serial killer. Upon reaching the neighborhood, Lee instinctively points out a specific house as the killer's hideout. Unfortunately, their initial attempt goes wrong as her partner's impatient actions lead to his death. Lee takes matters into her own hands though, and successfully apprehends the killer without any further issues. But she then undergoes a series of perplexing tests administered by the Bureau, with her boss Agent Carter revealing that they were actually evaluating her potential psychic abilities. Despite not reaching full psychic status, Lee's results were quite impressive, and as a result, Carter and his colleague Browning decide to assign her the Longlegs case. Longlegs, a mysterious figure with no known personal information, is linked to a string of murders through cryptic notes left at the crime scenes. The case had remained unsolved for many years due to Longlegs' unique modus operandi, and Carter suspects that Longlegs manipulates his victims into committing the crimes themselves, with Lee believing that he may have some help. After some early investigating, to give Lee a break from the intense beginnings to the investigation, Carter asks her to drive him home after a few drinks and introduces her to his family, including his wife Anna and their daughter Ruby, who later extends an invitation to Lee for her upcoming birthday celebration. This later comes full circle, and I must admit it was clever to build the killings up to this very moment, especially with Longlegs and his pattern of birthday visits. We also soon learn that the movie is split into 3 parts, with the first one focusing on the mysterious letters, including the one Lee finds on her desk in the middle of the night. It was written on a child's birthday card, and after cracking the code, Lee realizes that it refers to a Bible verse. As more victims of Longlegs are uncovered in town, Lee notices a pattern to the killings, particularly in when they take place. And we find out that each victim is a young girl born on the 14th of any month, with the actual dates of the murders following a specific pattern, one that corresponds to a satanic rune Lee finds in an occult book. And this brings us to the next element of Longlegs that at first appears quite confusing, and that is the part those creepy dolls have to play in the murders. To begin with, we get our first moment with Longlegs after that opening scene, where he makes a trip to his neighborhood hardware store to stock up on supplies, causing the teenage girl at the counter to feel uneasy. Luckily, she seeks assistance from her father to deal with the situation, but he manages to leave with everything he needs to craft his new dolls. We then return to Lee and Carter, who opt to pay a visit to the residence of the initial victims. During their search of the estate's barn, they stumble upon a hidden doll resembling a young girl. And upon having the doll inspected by a coroner, they are informed that aside from a metallic ball that was once embedded in the doll's head, the doll is just an ordinary one with some peculiar characteristics. When it's destroyed, it seems to release a mysterious black smoke that is almost otherworldly. The sinister power of these entities is never fully clarified, but it's suggested that they are the dark force behind the unthinkable acts of violence committed by once loving families. And it's around this very discovery that both Lee and Carter are taken aback when they learn that Carrie Ann Camera, the only survivor of the initial murder, has emerged from her decades-long catatonic state. After finding out that Longlegs had recently visited her and used Lee's name to sign in on the visitor's book, Lee has a conversation with Carrie Ann. She reveals to her that her family had received a gift doll from their local church, and shortly after, her parents killed their local priest and each other. Carrie Ann was spared because she was at school during this tragic event, but she currently has no resentment towards Longlegs. Strangely, she expressed her willingness to go ahead with any request made by him. So disturbed at how Longlegs could possibly know her name, Carter decides to try and get some information from her. From what we know, she vaguely remembers a strange man visiting her as a child. So Carter urges Lee to talk to her mother Ruth, a religious woman who lives alone and frequently rings Lee to remind her to pray. When she does visit her mother, she finds out that she never throws away anything, and this includes all of Lee's belongings. Ruth refused to discuss the strange visitor when she brings him up, and with no information, she decides to take boxes of her things home to see if she can find out anything. Once she does look through them, she makes a chilling discovery, as buried in one of the boxes is a clear picture of Longlegs in the snow from that opening scene, giving her even more to fear. So based on the image provided, the FBI launch a hunt for Longlegs, and he's eventually found. Lee, Carter, Browning, and other agents hold a debriefing session while watching footage of Longlegs' interrogation. It quickly becomes evident that Longlegs reacts to their current debriefing conversation rather than the interviewer off camera. So it's some creepy stuff that you wouldn't think was possible, hinting again at the supernatural elements involved in the film. After this, Lee insists on interrogating Longlegs herself, and that brings us to probably the best scene in the movie. Once Lee gets inside the interrogation room, Longlegs cryptically talks about birthdays and Lee's FBI aspirations, avoiding questions about his dolls. But he also hints that Ruth had answers to some of Lee's inquiries. So like cunning villains in other serial killer films, Longlegs has the upper hand. Their tense conversation comes to a head literally as Longlegs smashes his face over and over into the desk in front of him until he's dead, leaving Lee to watch on horrified. And as the Bureau cleans up this mess, Carter scolds Lee for the lack of evidence linking Longlegs to the crimes, while Lee suspects that an active helper was still at large. So Carter may believe the case is closed, but Browning decides to accompany Lee to Ruth's place as she still has suspicions. While Browning stays in the car, Lee explores her mother's house and stumbles upon a hidden door leading to the basement. The basement turns out to be Longlegs' place that we caught glimpses of throughout the film, where he created his dolls. As Lee hurries back upstairs to inform Browning of this, she watches as her mother, now dressed as a nun, shoots the agent multiple times with a shotgun. Ruth then narrates on screen her tumultuous past with Longlegs through voiceover and flashbacks, and it turns out that when Longlegs first approached a young Lee, Ruth bravely stood up to the killer. Surprisingly, he proposed a sinister deal. If Ruth worked for him, her daughter Lee would be left untouched. And succumbing to the pressure, Ruth became the unwitting pawn in Longlegs' diabolical schemes. She was the one who distributed possessed dolls to families under the guise of a church contest, unknowingly involving them in a dark occult ritual by inviting demonic spirits into their houses. So Longlegs may not be Lee's biological father, but living with her mother makes him a daddy Longlegs in essence. Lee's pursuit of Ruth uncovered the truth she has been blind to for years, and when she tries to pursue her mother around the back of the house, Ruth shoots at a doll of Lee in their yard, causing the real Lee to briefly lose consciousness as the spell the doll held over her is released. This then brings us to the ending and the last chapter of the film, which is titled Birthday Girls. Lee wakes up and discovers Ruth's plan to carry on Longlegs' work to protect her. She rushes to Carter's house upon realizing it's not only her birthday, but Ruby's too. And unfortunately, she arrives too late as her mother has already delivered another doll. While there, Carter, Anna, and Ruby all choose to disregard Lee's warnings about Ruth being the accomplice, despite her pleas to take the doll away. Carter instructs Anna to go to the kitchen, and once there, Carter fatally stabs his wife. Lee tries to intervene by holding her mother at gunpoint, urging her to cease the violence, and when Carter comes back to the living room and refuses, Lee shoots him. Ruth is also shot by Lee, leaving just Lee, Ruby, and the doll left. Lee then tries to shoot Ruby's doll to save her, but her gun is empty. Now she's stuck with Carter's daughter Ruby and the doll Longlegs made for her, so what happens next is anyone's guess. We end on Longlegs in his interrogation cell for the last time before taking his own life, and he utters "Hail Satan" and blows the audience a kiss. So this leaves us questioning whether Lee is now under the influence of the spell and carrying out the bidding of Satan. Director Oz Perkins commented on the ending recently, saying, "I try not to tell my children lies, having grown up in a family where certain truths were curated, not maliciously and with any kind of cruelty, but rather as a move to sustain the family and keep things together." So the idea that a mum, in this case, can create a story, a lie, a narrative, and dress their children in it is definitely where the movie came from. So thinking about those words from the director, as we ponder whether Lee is now under possession, the closing scene mainly symbolises that all-encompassing power of evil and how individuals can unknowingly contribute to their own downfall. But that was my breakdown and analysis for Oz Perkins Longlegs. I have to admit, I really enjoyed Perkins' latest film, and I think purely from a filmmaking perspective, he was able to make me feel on the edge throughout all the events that took place. The performances were a big part of this too, and without Cage and Monroe's roles, I don't think it would have hit the same heights. Again, I think a lot of viewers are going to have very different reactions coming out of the theatre, but just for me, I was locked into the tension of the story and appreciated the way that it was tackled scene by scene. But overall, I do hope this breakdown did help some of you guys understand the film and the main details a bit better, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comments section. For more videos on upcoming film releases like Longlegs, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.